theyeshiva.net.
Megillah Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. Where are we holding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lines from the top. 9 lines from the top. The line starts Ha'olam Kuloi. Ha'olam Kuloi. Amar Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Reb Shmuel, the son of Yehuda, taught. Sholcha lehem Esther lechachamim. This is a fascinating story of how the Yom Tov Purim came about. Sholcha lehem Esther lechachamim. Esther sent a message to the sages. Rashi says, the second Rashi, B'shana Shniya, in the second year, L'koiva aleihem choiva, she wanted that they should establish on the Jewish people the obligation to celebrate Purim. So Esther sends a message to the Chachamim of the time, the sages of the time. When we say Chachamim, what do we mean? Practically, we mean probably the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the body of 71 Jewish leaders, who was the Kavayachal, the supreme court of Jewish life. This institution starts already by Moshe Rabbeinu. Parshas Ba'aloischa, Hashem tells him to appoint 70 sages. Together with him is 71. You always have to have an odd number in case there is dispute, so you should be able to have a majority vote, because if not, you may remain stalemate, half and half, so you have to have an odd number. So you had 71, and these 71 were ordained by Moshe himself. And one of the most fascinating elements of Jewish history is that these 71 ordained in each generation many, many more, including 71, who constituted the body of the greatest scholars and righteous people among the Jewish people, because scholastics wasn't enough. Fear of heaven and integrity and authenticity was as essential, as discussed in many places, including Yisrael. And they would basically decide everything that had to be decided. Of course, they had to be, the main characteristic was their loyalty to the constitution of Torah, because without that, they were not Sanhedrin anymore. The main idea of Sanhedrin is the loyalty and dedication to the truth of Torah. And they were ordained in each generation from the previous generation, so it was a direct link till Moshe Rabbeinu. This institution was dissolved a few hundred years after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. But they are the ones who decided any mitzvah derabbanon. They are the ones who instituted it. You just have to know which generation. So Esther sends a message to the Sanhedrin, to the Chachamim, a year after the victory. The victory happened, Jews celebrated, but that was an instinctive celebration. But a year later, now you're thinking long term, and she asks them for something, 2 words. Kav'uni l'dairis. Establish me for generations. Let's see. The Gemarah is going to discuss it. That's a very hot and debatable topic. If there's any mechanism of reenacting the Sanhedrin, somebody tried to reenact the Sanhedrin in the 16th century in Sfas. It created a huge dispute. Mari Beirav, Mahal Bach, it's one of the famous big disputes in the 1500s in Sfas. He was masmach 5 people, including the Beis Yosef and his colleagues in Sfas, based on a Rambam that if all the Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael agree on somebody, they could reenact smicha like in the time of the Sanhedrin. Because you need smicha all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the Rambam, right? So he tried to use that halacha. Well, it dissolved because it created a tremendous conflict. Yeah, but they can only sustain a Sanhedrin if it's not corruptible. The moment they realized that it's not sustainable and it's going to be corruptible, then the worst thing you can do for the Jewish people is have a Sanhedrin. Because you centralize the power, and whenever you have centralized power, it gives room for ultimate corruption. The dissolving of the Sanhedrin saved Judaism as much as the Sanhedrin when they had it. Because the dissolving of the Sanhedrin created an unbelievable condition, and that is nobody, no individual or group can abduct the psyche of Judaism. It remained completely decentralized. Judaism became decentralized, and that became the source of its endurance until this very day, that the halacha and Yiddishkeit could not be corrupted. Napoleon made a Sanhedrin in 1807. Napoleon made a Sanhedrin in France. He made a big Sanhedrin. It was completely under the mercy of Napoleon. You understand? If that's what a Sanhedrin looks like, you're done.
So you're saying we're the first blockchain in the world?
Yeah. Decentralization. Yeah. The books were there. Shulchan Aruch, Gemarah, Rishonim, the books were there. And every city has its rabbis, its bezdin, its scholars. But even if one is completely corrupt, even if 100 are corrupt, that's why writing in Judaism was so important, because that's what keeps the integrity. Every minig, every halach, I can trace back to the source, when it developed, who developed it, why, what was the justification. It's all in the open. There's no truth that's created behind closed doors, in the Politburo, not for the masses to observe. Because that's right away you get suspicious. The first things that totalitarian governments do is my father would always tell me, the first thing totalitarian governments do is they create a bureau for truth. You understand? A bureau for truth. And the truth gets filtered through this bureau. Huh? The truth gets filtered through this bureau, and then everything. Or as a Jew who went to Russia in the 1960s, and you could testify, he said the Russians had nothing. There were people who didn't have bread, but a television everybody had. Because, of course, it was state-sponsored for propaganda. I don't mind if there's democratic elections, as long as there's a television telling you how to vote. Then it's fine. It could be democratic too. I'll call upon him. So Sholchalem Esther l'Chachamim. Esther asks the Chachamim, Kavuni l'doiris. What's Kavuni l'doiris? Kavuni l'doiris is, I want you to establish me for generations. Says Rashi, what's Kavuni? L'yamtif u'likriya liyas li l'shem. Establish me, meaning my story for a yamtif, u'likriya, read the story, tell the story, liyas li l'shem. To become a name. My story should become a name, meaning it should become established in Jewish history forever. Kavuni l'doiris. It may not happen. She knew it may not happen. Then they were happy. But today, it's 2,500 years later, who knows about Purim? This is what she asked. And they didn't want to. Sholchula, they sent back a message. Classic Jewish message. What's the message? What's the most classic Jewish message? Kina at moireres aleinu lebeinu umois. You're going to create anti-Semitism. This is going to trigger anti-Semitism. Why? Kina. You will incite the wrath of the nations against us. Kina is jealousy, anger, zealousness. Rashi says, the nations of the world are going to say, look at the Jews. They come together and they're happy and they feast and they drink. Why? Because we were defeated. They told Esther, not a good idea. The right way with Purim is shh, shh, shh. Yeah. Yeah. You know what Esther tells them? You think they don't know the whole story? I'm already written in all the Divrei Hayamim, in the Chronicles, in the books, what we would say today, in the newspapers, in the websites, in the blogs, the Divrei Hayamim, in the Chronicles. Divrei Hayamim is the stories, the history of the kings of Madai, of Persia, of Madai, of Media and Parshas, of Persia. They know. Rashi says, Sham Yirayin Mashir Elem Haidei Yisrael. They all know the story. So what's Esther saying? Esther is saying, Chach zoln the Yidden wissen the Meise. They know everything. Let the Jews know the story. Kavuni l'doiris, don't. You're worried. This is Esther. Esther tells the Chachamim. And you know what? They didn't answer. Guess what? Purim became a yamtif. Purim became a yamtif. Yamtif, kriya, liyas li l'shem. But this is not the end of the story. This is not at the end of the story. Rav, Reb Chanina, Reb Yochanan, Reb Chaviva Masnu. This Reb Shmuel taught. Rav, Reb Chanina, and Reb Yochanan, Reb Chaviva taught yet another part of the story. And here the Gemarah in parentheses or hyphen makes a little interruption. In the whole Seder Moyed, which includes Masechta Megillah, whenever you have this group of four Amoraim, Rav, Reb Chanina, Reb Yochanan, Reb Chaviva, some exchange Reb Yochanan with Reb Yonasan. Meaning in all Seder Moed, whenever you see a statement coming from this unit, from this group, some people say the right version is Rabbi Yonasan instead of Rabbi Yochanan. Rav, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yonasan, Rabbi Chaviva. What did they say? Shalchalam Esther l'chachamim. Esther now sends another message to the Chachamim. Kasvuni l'doides. Write me for all generations. This is very different than her first request. Her first request was Kavuni l'doides. Rashi says, what's Kavuni l'doides? Make me a Yom Tif. You can even read the story, Likriya. But my story, the name of Esther and what she did should become a Yom Tif. Now she asks for a special request. Kasvuni l'doides.
Instead or in addition?
No, in addition. Of course in addition. In addition to making it a Yom Tif, I want you to write me down l'doides. And what does it mean, Kasvuni l'doides? You could read the Megillah. It says before she wanted they should read. Rashi says, L'yom Tif l'kriya. Right? L'yom Tif l'kriya. So the Mefarshim explained, the Maharsha, the Turei Even of the Shagasarya explained. First, Esther wanted they should commemorate the story and read the Megillah. After they fulfilled this, she now asks that the Megillah should become one of the Kisvei Hakodesh, Kasvuni. Write it down as a sacred document that becomes part of the Tanakh. It becomes canonized as one of the 20 Svarim of the Tanakh, Megillah Esther. It becomes part of Kisvei HaKodesh. Kisvei HaKodesh. You could read it, you could read the Megillah, you could read the story about Peh. You could read the story as a story. You could read it by heart. Somebody could tell the story every year. Yeah. Even if you're reading it from a book, even if you're reading it from a diary, from Divrei Hayamim, fine, you're reading it to be able to remember the story, but it's not that the ksav is a holy ksav, it's a holy sefer. It's just to be able to remember the story. That's not what Esther wants. She now wants kasvuni l'doides. It should not only become written down, it should become one of the Kisvei HaKodesh. Yeah, it's not just a Yom Tov, it's not even a Yom Tov when you read even from a text, or you read Baal Peh, or even if you have a text, it's not Kisvei HaKodesh, it's a text in order to be able to tell the story. Not everybody knows the story by heart, right? But no, the Megillah that she and Mordechai and wrote should become Kisvei HaKodesh, divine, holy writings. And of course, we know the halacha in Purim is, we can't just tell the story. You read the Megillah. And if you miss a word, it's not good. You read it. You missed a word. You don't know the story because you missed a word. Yeah. Yeah, because it's a gather of ksav. In other words, to celebrate Purim, it's not enough that you know the story, that you feast, that you shalach manas, matanas lavyaina. It's a gather of ksav. And you have to read it mehaksav, from the ksav. That itself is a tachlis. It's mamish a inyan of ksav. That's a whole different thing. Chanukah, for example, we celebrate. We don't have Kisvei HaKodesh. There's something called Megillah Santayachas. There are communities where they read Megillah Santayachas on Chanukah. But it's like part of, it's part of a story. There's no, Yeah, Megillah Santayachas. Nicht in Russland. Nicht in Russland. But yeah, as part of the story, you read Megillah Santayachas.
First time when it's a request to be part of Ksuvim or not.
Yeah. And now, and just like when she requested the Yom Tov, they refused because of anti-Semitism. They refused this too. Esther gets credit not only for saving the Jewish people. Esther gets credit for everything connected to Purim. That's why it's called Megillah Esther. Why is it called Megillah Esther? Mordechai doesn't deserve to be mentioned. It was Esther who did it. Esther, first lady who got it done, but also the first lady who got it written and got the Yom Tov done. Kasvuni l'doides. Both of them. So why is it called Megillah Esther?
But why didn't Mordechai ask?
That's a good question. Why didn't Mordechai ask these questions? Huh?
Why is it both like the same?
No, it's collaborations. Yeah. Let's see what the Chacham said. Shalchula, they send her back a message. Sorry, we can't. Why? They quote a pasuk from Mishlei, Perik Chav Beis Pasuk Chav. Okay, Mishlei, Proverbs, is one of the Svarim written by Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech, according to tradition, gave us 3 books. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. Mishlei, the book of Proverbs. And Koheles, Ecclesiastes. Very different types. It says he wrote them in different ages. Shir HaShirim is full of love and passion, of Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. Koheles is very, very somber and introspective about how futile everything is. Hevel Havolim, Amar Koheles, Hakol Hevel. Everything is vanity, 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 vanity. What do you gain from all the hard work you do under the sun? And he goes through every type of pursuit and pleasure in life, which I also had. Whether it's honor and power and wealth and affluence and wisdom and everything. And then he says, but the living dog is much better than the dead king. It's a very somber book, to the point that we're going to see that some could not believe that it's part of the Tanakh. It's too depressing. It's too cynical. It's not usually what you would associate with Jewish faith. Koheles. Mishlei is a book about wisdom. Proverbs about life. It's instructions for life. It's like a wise man telling you how to live, about integrity, about ethics, about laziness, about dedication, about loyalty, about priorities, about morality, about God, about wisdom, about Torah. That's Mishlei. In Perek Chav Beis of Mishlei, Shlomo HaMelech speaks. And he says, let me quote to you the psukim. Haloi kasafti lecha. I'm just going to read the whole passage. Haloi kasafti lecha shalishim b'may eitzois vadas. Shlomo HaMelech in this perek speaks about the value and the contribution of the wisdom that he brought to the world. And the message that he gives over is that the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, Haloi kasafti lacha. I wrote to you or for you, shalishim. Shalishim means 3. So what does this mean? The Mefarshim struggle with this. Rashi says over there it means, I have given you Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the 3 parts of the Tanakh. Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Others say it's the 3 books of Shlomo, Shir HaShirim, Koheles, and Mishlei. I have given you 3. This is what I have given you. The Chachamim used this pasuk to reject Esther's request. Shalishim v'loy ribeim. 3 and not 4. 3 and not 4. What does this mean? So some say, let's see Rashi. Rashi says a fascinating interpretation. B'shloisha mekaymes yesh lanu la'askem milchemes Amalek. 3 times you can talk about the war against Amalek. Eile Shmois, Mishnah Torah, Sefer Shmuel. V'zeu shama shleima b'davar sheshilash te'iyah Torah shoyle ravai. There's 3 times that you could talk about the war against Amalek. Parshas B'Shalach, Eile Shmois, the Jews, Vayavei Amalek vayelachem Yisrael b'Refidim. Amalek declares war against the Jews in Refidim. And Moshe goes up to the mountain, Yeshua fights the war, and when they finish, right, Hashem tells Moshe to write it all and to give it over to Yeshua. I'm going to erase Amalek from under the heavens. Milchama la'Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. It's the Kriyas HaTorah of Purim, by the way. That's B'Shalach. That's once. Rashi says a second time, Parshas Kiseitze. We read it on Parshas Zachar before Purim, right? Zachar, Eisa Sharasa L'cha Amalek, Baderech B'Tzeischem Mitzrayim. That's number 2. What's number 3? Sefer Shmuel. Remember Shmuel Hanavi tells Shaul that Hashem commanded to wipe out Amalek. He sends him to war. That's when Shaul loses his royalty, his aristocracy. So Rashi says that's what the Chachamim was saying. Something that I wrote 3 times is 3, not 4. You want to give us a 4th? Sorry, Esther. We can't do this. Even though Shlomo is not talking there about Melchemes Amalek, But Rashi says Shlomo is telling them something that the Torah repeats 3 times. It's 3 times. No 4 times.
You can argue. It says,
Well,
God didn't finish because it's
fine. We'll make a Yom Tif, but not halakasafti lecha as a ksav. We'll make a Yom Tif, no problem. We'll read the story, but not kasvuni l'doiris. This is how they teach it. This is how Rashi teaches it. Others ask the Ritful Marshal play. Yeshua asks, it doesn't not speak about Amalek over there. So Rashi says, look at something the Torah does 3 times. It's 3, not 4. Yeah, that's what he's intimating. They looked at this pasuk and they said, we're stuck. We're confined by Torah. We don't just make a sefer when we like to. It doesn't work that way. Esther, sorry. We love your story. We made it a Yom Tif, but there are limits. We can't make it one of the Kisvei Hakodesh. That's how Rashi learns. Others learn, Shileshim is, this Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the Ritva says, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. You can't just add to the Ksuvim. We can't just add to the Ksuvim. We can't add a 4th chelik. No, we can't add a 4th chelik outside of Ksuvim, according to that interpretation.
There's one in Nevi'im, so
and one in
the 3rd one. You're right.
So let's see. Until they searched and they found a pasuk that's written in Torah, where Parshas B'Shalach. After the war against Amalek, it says Yehoshua weakened Amalek with the sword. The Jews came out victorious. What happens next? I'm going to read the whole pasuk. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe ksoiv zoi zikarim b'sefer v'sim ba'oznei Yehoshua ki moche emche zecher Amalek medachas hashamayim. Hashem tells Moshe, write this, a memory in a book, and also place it in the ears of Yehoshua, share it with him, that I'm going to blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Ksoiv zois zikarim b'sefer. Write this, a memory in a book. Says the Gemarah, Ksoiv zois zikarim b'sefer, Ksoiv zois mashakasav kana b'mishnah Torah. Zikarin mashakasav b'neviim. B'sefer mashakasav b'Megilah. They touched Ksoiv, right? Is this one, B'Shalach. Zois, this is Mishnah Torah, meaning Parshas Kiseitze and Sefer Dvarim. Zikaron, a memory, could have said, write it. A memory, that's Nevi'im, Shmuel. And B'Sefer, in a Sefer, what's B'Sefer? Mashakasav Megilah. That's the Megilah. The 3rd is Shmuel, Zikaron, which is Nevi'im. And then B'Sefer, in a Sefer, that's the Megilah. The Megilah becomes a Sefer. And now they make it a sefer, and it becomes one of the ksuvim. It becomes one of the ksuvim. The Marsha brings from the Yerushalmi that according to this, they say when it says "Kasafti lecha shalishim," I wrote you 3, means that Melchemes Amalek is mentioned in Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. In Torah twice, in Nevi'im once, and in Ksuvim a 3rd time. That's the shalishim. So Esther's request was accepted. Rashi says something very interesting. Zois mashakasav kanav mishnah Torah, the chol mashakasav b'Torah kodex ksav echad. Whatever says in Chumash is called one ksav. So it's not a contradiction to have it 3 times. That's how the Gemarah reconciled it. Rashi says if it's in Chumash, it's considered 1. Mishnah Torah and Pashalach are 1. Nevi'im is 2, and Megillah Esther is 3. So it's not a problem. That's how Rashi learns it. It's not a problem with Rabbi. Which of course raises the question, if that's the case, then why do they need this pasuk soiv zois zikarim b'sefer? They could just say it's 3, not 4, because everything in Chumash is 1. B'Shalach and Mishnah Torah is 1, Shmuel is 2, Megillah Esther is 3. But the Gemarah didn't think so. The Gemarah lechatchila said that it's 4. It would be 4, and you can't have 4. So he brought a pasuk soiv zois zikarim b'sefer, which sounds like 4. So that's what Rashi should have said. That they found a pasuk that you can have 4. And 3 could mean Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuv. It's not what Rashi says. Rashi says, when they found this pasuk, they understood that in Chumash, it's all 1. No, if it's a Chumash in 1, so you don't have a problem, so it's not 4, it's 3. It's difficult to understand. Svasem asks it, Pnei Yeshua asks it. A lot of Mefarshim ask this on Rashi. L'chayre, Rashi is putting in something very interesting here. But with the Gemarah, it seems like the Gemarah is saying, it says 3, but we have a pasuk that it says 4. The oimek here is,
They bring the idea of shloshim, that it's 3 times.
3 times.
They bring it
That was their problem.
but they bring it from Mishnah.
For Mishle. That it's only 3 times. So Rashi says, in Chumash it's considered 1, so it's only 3 times. You understand? B'shalach kiseitze is 1, Shmuel is 2, Megillah Esther is 3. So what do you need to k'soiv zay zikarim b'sefer? But the oimek hadavar is, what's pshat kosvuni l'doiris? There's a difference between Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. In Torah, the Ksav, the writing of Torah, is on a different level completely than Nevi'im and Ksuvim. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Megillah, that from Yerushalmi, that all the Svarim of Nevi'im and Ksuvim are going to be bottled when Mashiach comes. Chutz from the Megillah of Esther, v'harehi kayemes kachamisha chumsha Torah. She stands and endures like chamisha chumsha, and like the halachas she'enam p'teilim lo'elam. Now, what's exactly pshat in that? You have to understand what it means. It's all going to be bottled. What does it mean it's going to be bottled? Doesn't mean the directives are going to be bottled because Torah doesn't get bottled. But that's what he says from Yerushalmi. The Al-Shich adds that it's part of it is a source from this Gemarah. The Al-Shich says in Megillah. Why? Because if they found in Torah, Ksoiv Zoy Zikarim Bas-Sefer, so in Chumash it said to write the Megillah Bas-Sefer, so then the Megillah can't be bottled because the Chumash said to write it, and Chumash doesn't get bottled. The other Nevi'im and Ksuvim doesn't say in Chumash to write. The problem is L'chayre, Sefer Shmuel, is part of the Nevi'im. Why would that get bottled if it says in Chumash? But there's a big difference because Sefer Shmuel is in the word Zikarin. Megillah Esther is the word Bas-Sefer. What's the difference of Zikarin and Bas-Sefer? Zikarin means to remember. You're writing it to remember. Bas-Sefer is you want a Sefer. There's a big difference between Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim and the Ksav. And I'll give you one example in halacha. It's a fascinating halacha. The halacha is that when you make a shvuah, a neder, or a vow not to, let's say, eat something. So one way is to be matfis bedavar hanadur. You attach it, you associate it with something that's already forbidden. For example, if I say, I'm not saying it, coffee for me is like a carbon. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, a person says the coffee is like the carbon. So just like the carbon is hektish, right? It's not mine, it's off limits. So the coffee has the same geder. So there's a halacha in Mishnah, Masechta Nedarim Daf Yud, if somebody says, that he's matvis his shvuah or his neder in the shvuah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu made an oath to Yisro. It says, Vayoyel Moshe in Shmois, he made an oath to Yisro. He made an oath that he's not going to leave Midyan without his permission, or he made an oath that he's going to allow him to educate his first child. It says Moshe made an oath to Yisro. So if I'm matvis my shvuah in the shvuah of Moshe, I say, this should be like the oath of Moshe, it's fine. So the Mefarshim say, but what do you mean? Moshe's oath happened thousands of years ago. So the Reconciling writes, no, since it says in Chumash, it's always happening. In other words, the Ksav of Chumash, it's not just the content is relevant. The Ksav of Chumash is like the energy is always happening. It's like the Shvuah is still happening. It's a Davar Nitzchi. So Nevi'im and Ksuvim is a zikaron. It's a zikaron to remember the concept. That's going to be when Mashiach comes also. What the Rambam is saying is Megillah Esther, harei kachamisha chumsh, harei kayemes kachamisha chumsh Torah. It's like always being said. It's like the energy is always happening. It's a dynamic energy. Zikaron means I'm remembering something that's not here. If it's here, I don't have to remember it, right? By Torah, by Chumash, the reason it's not going to get bottled is, it's like it's always being written right now. That's the idea of the Sefer. The Sefer is that it's like a divine continuous activity of the very mitzvah being said. It's not just the concept, the idea, the ramifications, the results, the directive, the instruction. It's a constitution that's always being written, so of course it can't get bottled. That was the chiddush of the Megillah. If that's the case, Rashi says, for this, Dvarim and Shmois are the same thing. It says Mishnah Torah is a different level of Ruach HaKodesh. Moshe did it on his own. Shmois is a different level of Ruach HaKodesh. You can't compare Sefer Dvarim to the previous farm. That's in the level of Ruach HaKodesh. So initially they thought Esther just once, Megillah Esther should be added to a Ruach HaKodesh Sefer. Meaning a Sefer of Ksuvim, which is holy Ruach HaKodesh. They said, sorry, we have a limit here. We could do Shileshim, you can have Shmois, you can have Dvarim, which is a lower level of Ruach HaKodesh. Mishnah Torah, Moshe says on his own, we Ruach HaKodesh, we'll see later. You can have Shmuel, Nevi'im, but that's it. What's the chiddush of the pasuk? Ksoiv zoi zikarim bas sefer. It has a gedit of sefer. A sefer like Chamisha Chumsha Torah. In that, Dvarim and Shmois are exactly the same thing. They're both part of the Sefer Torah. You take out one letter from Sefer Dvarim, your Sefer Torah is possible. It's with the Ksav, is not just sacred. The Ksav itself becomes the Ikir, the Tachlis. It's like a living document, as though it's happening right now. It's like, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimer is happening now. That's what the written document means. Not just that the mitzvah remains, but that the tzivui remains. Not just the theme remains, but that the commandment remains. That's the chiddush. Kosvuni l'doiris. I should be written as a sefer l'doiris. So Rashi says, in that case, Shmois and Mishnah Torah are one. And that's when Megillah Esther assumes this unique identity. So the Gemarah says, Kitanoi. The truth is that this limud of Ksoiv Zayzaygarim B'Sefer is connected to an argument of Tanoim. We learned to Braisa Ksoiv Zayz Mashakasav Kan, Zikarim Mashakasav Mishnah Torah, B'Sefer Mashakasav B'Neviim Divri Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says Ksoiv Zayz is Shmois, Zikaron Mishnah Torah Kiseitze, B'Sefer is Neviim. In other words, you only have three. Rabbi Lezer Amudai Yomer no Ksoiv Zayz Mashakasav Kan Ube Mishnah Torah. Ksoiv Zois is here, and Dvarim, and Mishnah Torah. Zikarim Mashakasav b'Neviim, B'Sefer Mashakasav b'Megilah. So the four Ameirayim who explained that they found a pasuk to support Esther follows Rabbi Lezer Hamadai, unlike Rabbi Yeshua, who really believes that Megillah Esther was not found, hinted in a pasuk in Parshas B'Shalach. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Esther eina metames hayadayim. Fascinating halacha. Esther does not contaminate the hands. What does this mean? Esther does not contaminate the hands. Towards the end of Bayis Sheni, towards the end of Bayis Sheni, there was one day the Chachamim were located on an attic, and they made 18 edicts that day. In the votes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai won. They made 18 edicts. One of them was this halacha, Kisvei Hakodesh Metamenes Hayadayim, which means if I touch a Sefer Torah, my hands become impure, which doesn't really make sense. But there were two issues that were going on. Issue number one was people used to hide their truma, their sacred grain, near their holy scrolls because they wanted to keep it away from the kinderlach. The problem is mice like food. You know that, yeah? Mice, rats, weasels, so they would come to the truma in the hiding place. They also like parchment. You ever got a mouse? You ever had your paper being devoured by a mouse? So from the truma they went right to the Kisvei HaKodesh, which often got ruined by mice or other similar rodents, etc. So what they do, they made a halacha that holy books are metameis hayadayim. So if truma touches it, the truma is going to become tummy. You won't be able to eat it. So they're not going to keep the truma near the Kisvei HaKodesh. That's what they did. A second halacha was, you're not supposed to touch a Sefer Torah with your bare hands. So they said, if you touch it, your hands become tummy. Now if a kohen takes these hands and he touches truma, the truma becomes tummy. He can't eat it anymore. Because when hands are tummy, they're called shniyos and they're metame truma. So therefore, they made this halacha about all holy writings that they're metame. Why? For the sake of the writings themselves, they shouldn't be eaten by the mouse, and for the sake that a person shouldn't just touch them with bare hands, without a hefsek, in their honor. So Shmuel says, that's all the svarim. Megillah Esther eina metame sayadayim. Megillah Esther is an exception. It's not metame the yadayim. It's not like Kisvei HaKodesh. L'meimre, the Savar Shmuel. Shmuel probably holds Esther lav beruach HaKodesh nemra. He probably holds Esther was not written by divine inspiration. It's just a product of Mordechai and Esther's own wisdom. That's probably what Shmuel holds. He doesn't agree that it's Kisvei HaKodesh taka. He has his own way. But that doesn't make sense. Amar Shmuel Esther beruach HaKodesh nemra. Shmuel clearly said that Esther was said beruach HaKodesh. So the Gemarah says, you're right, said, but nemra likrois v'loy nemra lichtayv. Yes, Megillah Esther was said beruach HaKodesh, but it was said to be read to be taught, to be told, but not to be written and to become part of Kisvei HaKodesh. In other words, Mordechai and Esther had divine inspiration to write down Megillah Esther. But part of that divine inspiration is it should not become one of the Kisvei HaKodesh. It shouldn't be written in a book as one of the Svarim of the Tanakh. It could be said like Torah Shabbat Peh, without a sefer. It could be said without a sefer. Or even if you want to say you want to read it from a text, but the text is not sacred. That's what Shmuel holds. And that's why it's not Metame the Yadayim. The story is a sacred story. But the text, the ink, the parchment, that's not a gather of Kedusha. It's not Metame the Yadayim. Frag the Gemarah, 1 second. Meisva. So according to Shmuel, we have a serious chiddush here. It would seem that Shmuel holds that Megillah Esther you don't have to read, right? Megillah Esther you just have to say. You don't have to read it. So let's say I know the Megillah by heart. Yeah? It's fine. You could do that on Purim. That's what he says. Nemra likrois v'lo nemra lichtov. Lo nemra lichtov. The problem is we're going to learn a Mishnah later that if you read the Megillah by heart, right, you're not Yotzi. You have to read it from the Ksav. As we explained before, you read it from the Ksav. So you could say that Shmuel Mamish disagrees with that. You could say that Shmuel holds it's not from Kisvei HaKodesh. He holds like Rabbi Yeshua. You're right. He holds that maybe Esther's request was not accepted. Kovuni, not kosvuni. Like Rabbi Yeshua. Sorry, we can't add ksuvim. It's Ruach HaKodesh. The story is Ruach HaKodesh. But not, Ruach HaKodesh is not that it becomes a holy text. It's not. Wow. So Shmuel may disagree that you have to read it mitoich haksav. That's one way of learning it. That's what's mashma from Rashi. Because Rashi says, Hu da'amak Rabbi Yeshua, that it was not given to be written, but just to read. That's how the Ritva explains Rashi. Tosfos says, you're right. Only Medirabanan that you have to read it. In other words, it's not Kisvei HaKodesh, Beruach HaKodesh. But the Chachamim said, read the Megillah from the Ksav. Even though it's not Kisvei HaKodesh. It's not Kisvei HaKodesh, but the Chachamim said to read it Medoich HaKsav. And if not, you're not Yoitze. It's a separate takana to read it from the Ksav. That's what Shmuel holds. That's what Tosfos explains. A third way of explaining it is the Ritva, that even Shmuel holds that Beruach HaKodesh, it was accepted to write it as a sefer, but not that it should become Kisvei HaKodesh. It could be, it was written as a sefer to read, but not that it becomes Kisvei HaKodesh. There's a big difference. In other words, it's a text to read, and it's a holy text to read. But the word is, it's a hachana for the reading. It's not that the ksav itself is an inyan of Kedusha. That's Shmuel. Frag the Gemarah Meisva. Reb Meir taught Koheles Eine Metameis Hayadayim. Koheles also does not contaminate the hands. Or Machloikas b'Shir Hashirim. And it's an argument about Shir Hashirim, yes or no. Rabbi Yossi Yomer, the other way around. Shir Hashirim Metameis Hayadayim, Machloikas b'Koheles. Shir Hashirim is for sure Metame. That's not a question, I'm sorry. The Machloikas is by Koheles. Reb Meir dismisses Koheles. Shir Hashirim is a Machloikas. Rabbi Yossi says, no. Shir Hashirim is obviously Kisvei HaKodesh. The question is Koheles. Reb Shimon Yomer.
Is it Shir Hashirim brought because Ross, it's the only two scrolls that don't mention the name of God?
Yeah. Megillah Esther doesn't have once the main name of Hashem. It doesn't even have once. Probably part of why Shmuel believes it's not Metame the Yadayim. It's not the Kisvei HaKodesh. And Shir Hashirim also is not about Hashem. It has Hashem's name mentioned at the end once. Rishafer Rishveyesh Shalheves Yud-Hey. That's it, the whole Shir Hashirim. And Shir Hashirim is really a love story between a lover and a beloved. Anila Doidi v'Doidi Li. He searches for her in the gardens and in the vineyards and in the fields and in the farms, and he gets hurt and she gets hurt and they're chasing each other. On a surface level, it doesn't seem like a part of the Tanakh. There's no moral instruction there. Even the Megillah doesn't have Hashem's name, but it's a story of divine providence, of how Hashem runs the world. Shir Hashirim doesn't have that. That's why he said it's a machloikas. Rabbi Yossi says no. Shir Hashirim is for sure metame. The machloikas is Koheles. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Koheles mikuli Beishamai mechumrei Beis Hillel. Actually, Koheles is one of the things Beishamai was lenient, and Beis Hillel uncharacteristically was stringent, because according to Beis Hillel, it's one of the Kisvei HaKodesh Koheles. Beishamai holds not. Avorus, Hashirim, ve'Esther metamen asayadayim. But Rabbi Shimon says Rus, Shehashirim, and Esther, Megillah's Esther, are all metame the Yadayim because they're one of the Kisvei HaKodesh. What does it seem from here? That by Megillah's Esther, there's no argument. Megillah's Esther, everyone holds metame as HaYadayim. He says, no, who damak Rabbi Yeshua? Shmuel follows Rabbi Yeshua, who said earlier that Milchemes Amalek should not be mentioned in Kisvei HaKodesh because Ksoiv Zois is Chumash, B'Shalach and Mishnah Torah. Ksoiv is B'Shalach and Zois is Mishnah Torah. Rabbi Yeshua said Ksoiv Zois is Shmois, and Zikaron is Mishnah Torah, and Basefer is Shmuel. He holds like Rabbi Yeshua, and therefore Megillah's Esther is not from Kisvei HaKodesh, and it's not metame the Yadayim. Okay, that's the shitta of Shmuel, uniquely not to Kisvei HaKodesh. And as I told you, from Rashi, it's much. But take a look in Rashi. Who the Amar Rabbi Yeshua? The Amar Leel Zois Mashakasav B'Torah, Zikaron Mashakasav B'Mishnah Torah, B'Sefer Mashakasav B'Neviim, Aval B'Megilah Lo Nitna Likasev Ela Legoisa Al Peh V'Likroisa. Megillah was not given to be written, only by heart. Read it by heart, and that's how you say it. From Rashi, it seems like there's, according to Shmuel, there's no mitzvah to read the Megillah mitoich haksav. You can completely read it al peh. As I told you, Tosfos disagrees, holds midirabbanan there is, even though it's not Kisvei HaKodesh, and the Ritva holds, even if it's Kisvei HaKodesh, it's a different geder. Even if it was written by Ruach HaKodesh, even if it was from Rashi, it's mashma that the whole writing is simply to remember it. In other words, it was to be said bepeh without a sefer, not to be written to become part of Kisvei HaKodesh. The main Megillah is to read it bal peh, not from a sefer. That's what it seems from Rashi. You could write it down, and you could read it mitoich haksav, but it's basically Torah shabal peh. That's its definition. As I told you, Tosfos holds that what? It's not Kisvei HaKodesh, but the Takonas Chacham is to read it from the Ksav. And the Ritva says that even if it was accepted to be written by Ruach HaKodesh, it's not considered Kisvei HaKodesh. It's written by Ruach HaKodesh, you should be able to remember the story. But again, it's not that the text itself becomes sacred.
So who put it as part of the Shul? The Sanhedrin must have established it as part of the Shul.
Well, most of the Tanoim agree, but Rabbi Yeshua doesn't. And Shmuel follows that it's a text, but it's not called Kisvei HaKodesh. And that's why it's not metame the Yadayim. If you touch your hands to Megillah Esther, nothing happens. There's no tumah.
But the fact that it's part of Ksuvim,
according to him, it's not part of Ksuvim. That's the point. We call it part of Ksuvim, but according to him, it's not part of Ksuvim. This is an argument. They don't hold it's part of Ksuvim. Rabbi Yeshua didn't hold it's part of Ksuvim. Shmuel didn't hold it's part of Ksuvim.
but it's not even it's not a machlokes in halacha.
It's a big machlokes in halacha. If you're allowed to read the Megillah Baal Peh, if the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah instituted, you have to read the Megillah. If it's called Kisvei HaKodesh, if it's Metame the Yadayim, it has all ramifications in halacha.
The fact that it's established part of Ksuvim, it should override all their thinking. What are they thinking? It's part of Ksuvim. That's it.
No, Shmuel also holds it's Beruach HaKodesh, but the question is, how important is the written text? That's the question.
It's as important as Chumash itself.
Okay, yeah, that's the first shit, but he doesn't hold like this. Rabbi Yeshua doesn't hold like this, and Shmuel doesn't hold like this. The Gemarah says, Tanya, we learned a brayso. Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, Reb Shimon ben Manasseh said, Koheles doesn't contaminate the hands because it's the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech. What do we mean it's the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech? It's his own wisdom. That's what he held. Koheles is his own chachma. Why should it be metames hayadayim? It's a brilliant text that was written by a great man. Frag the Gemarah Amru Lai, please. V'chizu bilvad Amar. This is, you think, the only wisdom that Shlomo HaMelech said? In Melachim Aleph Perikei, it says that Shlomo HaMelech communicated 3,000 parables. Where is that all? It's not written, right? He said it. Koheles is written. Obviously, it's a different caliber, it's a different category. It was said with divine inspiration, and therefore was included in Kisvei HaKodesh. V'oimer, furthermore, Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei Perek Lamed, Al toisef al dvarav pen yechiach b'chavan exafta. Don't add to his written words. Why? What does he care if you add? The reason is because it's Beruach HaKodesh. He doesn't want you to add. Frag the Gemarah, Mai v'oimer. What do they need a second proof against Reb Shimon ben Manasseh? The first seems very powerful because v'chiteim, maybe you could say Meimar Tuva Amar. Maybe Shmuel did say a lot of wisdom, other wisdom. What he wanted, he wrote down, and what he didn't want was not written. In other words, maybe Koheles is not Beruach HaKodesh. Why is Koheles written? Sometimes people share a lot of things, and then there's a certain part that they want to write down. What's the proof that it's divine because he wrote it down? Maybe this is what he wanted to write. Tashma, that's the second proof, al toisef al dvarav. That Shlomo HaMelech said, don't add to the words that he wrote because he felt this was a different category. And that's why they argued with Reb Shimon ben Manasseh that Koheles is Beruach HaKodesh. The Gemarah says, Tanya, we learned a brayso. Rebbe Lezer says, Esther Beruach HaKodesh Nemra. Esther was said with Ruach HaKodesh. How do I know? How do we know Esther was said Beruach HaKodesh? Shenemar. The Gemarah is now going to go through all the verses in Esther that nobody but God would be able to know. Shenemar, the pasuk says, you remember the scene, Esther Perek Vav. Achashverosh is suffering from insomnia. He wakes up at night. He wants to reward the person who saved his life from Bixen Vaseresh. And what does it say? Haman comes in and he asks Haman, what do we do to reward the man who the king loves? Vayomer Haman beliboy. Haman said in his heart, who does the king want to honor more than me? For sure it's me. And that's when Haman says, take the king's crown, take the king's garment, take the king's horse, let this man be ridden around Shushan and declared, Kacha, this is what you do for the man who the king wants to honor. Esther Belezer, how do you know what Haman was thinking in his heart? You're his therapist? He came to you for therapy the next day. He came to Esther and he said, this is what I was thinking in my heart. How do you know? Who knows what a man is thinking in his heart? How do you know? Only one knows. The one who knows what's happening in people's hearts. So Rabbi Lezer says, this is the proof that Esther was Beruach HaKodesh. Unless I'm making up a story, which we don't suspect anybody, you can write wisdom. How do I know what you're feeling? Unless I'm being a conduit for the divine, for Hashem, and that's what I'm writing. I could say, because I'm being a conduit for divine inspiration. Rebbe Lezer.
You can say it's clear.
Okay, one second. Rebbe Avram, a minute. Bakiva Eimer. Esther Beruach HaKodesh Nemar, Shenemar, Vati Esther Noises Chen Beini Kol Re'ah. When Esther is appointed as queen, she evokes grace in the eyes of all who saw her. How do you know? How do you know, Rabbi Akiva says, that everyone who saw Esther felt that she's full of chen? How do you know? Eine kol royah? Only one knows, and that is the one who knows what everyone is experiencing. And that's the Rebbeinu Shalom. Reb Meir Omer, Esther Beruach HaKodesh Nemar Shenemar, Vayivad Hadav LaMordechai. Mordechai found out about the plot of Bixen and Seresh to execute Achashverosh. How? Ruach HaKodesh. Reb Yossi ben... It became known. How would he know? They consulted Mordechai before they killed the king, a man close to the king. Good question. Good question. You're saying Mordechai had Ruach HaKodesh. How do you know it was written by Ruach HaKodesh? Mordechai just tells me, right, that Mordechai had Ruach HaKodesh when the story happened. It doesn't mean that Esther was written by Ruach HaKodesh. I could write a book and say that this man had Ruach HaKodesh. Doesn't mean I have Ruach HaKodesh when I'm writing it, yeah? Good question. Very good question. So Rabbi Yonasan Eibschutz in Yaris Dvash answers, Mordechai wrote the Megillah. He wouldn't have written a line that would say that he had Ruach HaKodesh if he didn't have Ruach HaKodesh to write it. Mordechai wouldn't write a sentence in the Megillah that would prove that he has Ruach HaKodesh. You understand? As the famous expression, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. When you have Ruach HaKodesh, you don't walk around saying, by the way, I have Ruach HaKodesh. Invest in me. Invest in me. That's what the Yaris Dvash does. Sfas Emes says something even deeper. He says, if you have Ruach HaKodesh, you don't have permission to write it down. It's intimate. You have to get permission. How could Mordechai write in a book that he has Ruach HaKodesh? You have to get permission. It's Ruach HaKodesh. He had permission. That was Ruach HaKodesh to write down that he had. You don't have permission to say you have Ruach HaKodesh. It's sacred. It's intimate. You have to have permission. He speculates. This is what someone says maybe. You have to have permission to say Ruach HaKodesh. B'chol beisin emanu. You can't just go around telling secrets. So the fact that he wrote it had to be Beruach HaKodesh. Now, I want you to see who these people are. You have Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Akiva, Rebbe Meir. You're dealing with the greatest Gdolim of the generation, after Churban Bayesheni, proving Ruach HaKodesh. One proves it from what? Haman's thoughts. The other one proves it that everybody was dazzled by Esther's beauty. The third one, that Mordechai knew what they're thinking. And finally, Rabbi Yossi ben Dermaskis, Esther Beruach HaKodesh Nemer, Shenemer Uva Biza Lo Yisholchu Es Yadam. When the Jews killed all their enemies on Yud Gimel Adar, it says they did not take any of the spoil. How do you know there was not one Jew who saw a nice iPhone or a laptop? They had laptops there. Or whatever he saw. And he took, you know, every Jew didn't take biza. You know how people are. How could you write such a thing? Obviously, unless you're a conduit for Ruach HaKodesh, it's written with divine intent. God knows if people took biza or not. I don't know. Nobody knows. Mordechai doesn't know. But Hashem knows. Omar Shmuel. So Shmuel says, if I would have been there, where's there? In the company of these Tanoim, Rebbe Akiva, Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Meir, Rebbe Yossi ben Dermaskis. These are Tanoim who live much before Shmuel. Shmuel lives in the 300s after the Common Era, the 4th century. Yeah, end of 2, beginning of 3, middle of 3. These Tanoim are living in the century of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, the 1st century after the Common Era, or the 2nd century after the Common Era. If I would have been with them, I would say something better than everybody else. What would I say? Shenemar. The Pasuk says in the Megillah, and let's read the whole Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Kimu v'kiblu ha-Yehudim aleim v'al-zaram v'al-kol ha-nilvim aleim lias oisim es shnei hayamim me'ele kichsavim v'chizmanim b'chol shana b'shana. Megillah says to pay the test. At the end of the story, Kimu, what does Kimu mean? They affirmed. They were Mekayim. V'kiblu, and they accepted. What did they accept? To celebrate Purim. What's Kimu v'kiblu? Kimu v'kiblu. They affirmed. They were Mekayim. Or Kiblu. Kimu l'mayla, masha kiblu l'mata. Kimu is, they affirmed in heaven what the Jews received down here. The takana of Purim was made by Jews. The Jews who celebrated Purim right afterwards, and then later Esther and the Sanhedrin. Kimu l'mayla, in heaven they affirmed masha kiblu l'mata. How do you know when you're writing the Megillah what happened in heaven? Maybe heaven didn't accept. Huh? But they're talking about the Megillah now. They're talking about proving from the text that it was written Beruach HaKodesh. Shmuel says, I'll tell you the best thing. They're telling me what happened in heaven. Kimu masha kiblu. How do you know? Maybe not Kimu masha kiblu. The answer is, God knows what's happening in heaven. Yeah. If it was written Beruach HaKodesh, you know what happened in heaven. Kimu masha kiblu. Kimu l'mayla masha kiblu l'mat. Amar Rava. Why does Shmuel say this is the best? Say it's another pshat. All the other proofs you can refute besides Shmuel. And he goes through. Rebbe Lezer, who says, how do you know what Haman is thinking? I'll tell you how you know. Svarahu. It's logic, like you said. The Loyavinish, the Chashav, the Malkakava say, there was nobody who was as significant by the king as Haman. He knew that. You see, it says he made him greater than all the ministers. So now when the king says, I want to reward somebody, right? That Amelech Chafetz Bikarai. I want to reward somebody who's precious by me. If you were Haman, what would you think? There's nobody more than me. Obviously, he's talking about me. So you don't have to be a prophet to know this. You could know what people are thinking if you know a little bit about their Mishigasan. Basic psychology. Furthermore, What is he telling the king to do? Put him on the royal garments, put him on the crown, put him on the source. You think Haman is interested in other people? If he doesn't think it's him, he wouldn't give such beautiful rewards, especially the first time. The Marsha said the first time he asked for the crown too. The king got upset. He didn't ask for the crown the second time. In other words, this guy was thinking big. Who are you asking for to wear the king's crown? Chaim the Schuster. Zundel, the fruit man. He's the adaita de nafshe. Narcissistic personality disorder par excellence. Nobody else. You don't need to be a Navi. Of course, Haman thought it was by Haman believed by. Look from his words, and from his words you see what he was thinking. He thought it was him. Rabbi Akiva says everybody loved how Esther looked. Dilma, Rebbe Lazar, follows the tradition of Lazar. Amar melamed shekol echad ve'echad nidmas saloi ke'umasa. It's a fascinating teaching. Everyone who saw Esther felt that she came from his nation, from his tribe, from his culture. Rashi has here an expression. Rashi says, Nidmas saloi ke'umasa hayu oimrim b'fiyem zu mishaluni. Zumish, this is where the expression comes from. You ever heard the expression? Mishaluni? This is the Rashi and Megillah. Fin inzira. Now you learned a new Yiddish expression. Mishaluni, you're from ours. Everyone knows one of the deepest psychological currents in history is the sense of the phobias from people who are different than you, right? We're comfortable with my type, my culture. So Rashi says everybody would see her and say, wow, she's one of ours. Like they felt, which is an incredible quality. In other words, I guess she was so wholesome. She was so confident and she was so in tune with a deeper energy that everybody could claim her as their own. You could feel really comfortable with her. Why do we claim certain people as our own and others not? Because, you don't look like me, you don't daven like me, you don't believe what I believe, you don't dress like me. You come from a different culture, so this is a protective gear. With Esther, you didn't need that. And Rashi says, everybody said it. So Rabbi Akiva says, Vati Esther Chen, noises ben go wherever you went. People used to say, wow, you're from ours, you're from ours, you're from ours. Huh? What?
I know of a famous speaker who has this...
Mishaloni. And you don't need Ruach Hakodesh. Rabbi Litzman, you're a good man, but you don't have Ruach Hakodesh. Amos? No, Rashi says, Hayu oimrim b'fiyem. Why did Rashi say b'fiyem? They used to say, wow, everybody said it. It's like everybody saw Esther. Wow, she was born by us. She davens our nusach. Huh? She knows the slang. She mamish. It's mamish. Mishaloni. It's an interesting Rashi. Mishaloni. This is ours. We own her. Huh? Which is very rare with a person. You may stand out, but you're not Mishaloni. Everyone owns her. Nidmas aloi kol Monsey. She grew up in your school system, right? She knows your Chaluptzes. She knows your Weltanschauung. Chaluptzes for one culture, Weltanschauung for another culture. You'll learn a new word, it's fine. Yeah. Now you're asking, the Rabbi Yonasan says, how do you know Be'inei Kol Royeha? What, everyone who saw her? Perhaps what the Gemarah means is also, we have a Kal Nalacha Rubai Kakuloi. Doesn't mean every person who saw it, but if the majority said it, and they used to say it wherever she went, so you could put it in the Megillah without being a prophet. Reb Meir, Dilmer Reb Chia Barabba, Reb Chia Barabba, Dama Bixen v'Seresh, Nei Tarsiyim Ayo. How do you know it was Ruach HaKodesh? Bixen and Seresh spoke in a language called Tarsiyim. Is it translated in English? What's Tarsiyim?
From Tarshish, no?
From Tarsia. Okay, now we know what it is. The language of Tarsia. And they didn't think Mordechai knows Tarsia. You know what I mean? Somebody speaking here in Shul Japanese. They don't suspect that anybody here knows. You look at the people. They like sushi, but they're not Japanese. How is Mordechai supposed to know Tarsia? Of course, the Gemarah is going to say that Mordechai knew it because he was one of the Sanhedrin. So it's not a proof that he was a prophet, that he had Ruach HaKodesh. It could be he knew Poshet because he understood the language, and they weren't camouflaged, and they thought they're camouflaging the message. They were not successful. Rabbi Yosef ben Damascus, who speak about the Jews not taking the spoil. Dilma Pristakai Shadur. maybe they sent Pristakoya Shluchim. They sent messengers to Mordechai and Esther from all the provinces. You should know that none of the Jews took any of the money. And there was a reason for it. Rashi says they didn't want Achashverosh to get upset. You know that the Jews right away used this opportunity to get rich. It wasn't about that. It was about self-defense, as we spoke about a few times. So therefore,
They could have a message for all of them not to take money.
So yeah, that was a message. And they sent it back to Mordechai and Esther when they wrote the Megillah. They could write, is it possible that one man fooled somebody? Yeah. But they're writing something that's based on knowledge. It's not a lie, based on what they heard. Based on what they heard. The Shmuel vade lesle pircha. The only one that you can't refute is Shmuel. That in heaven, kimu l'mayla masha kiblu l'mata, that you can't know without Ruach HaKodesh. So here you have an interesting thing. Shmuel was an Amoira, lived a very long time after these Tanoim. Amar Ravina had to say something about this. This explains, Mefarshim say, why it's going to be a very strange comment now in Gemarah. You never have that somebody has an argument and then somebody says, Hainu damri inshi. Now you know what people say. Tove chade pilpalte charifte mimeli tzane kare. One seed of sharp pepper is superior to a whole basket of squash. Did I translate it right? Melons. Okay. One sharp pepper is better than a basket filled with lemons. In other words, melons. A melon, yeah. In other words, even though the pepper is one of the smallest of herbs of spices, and melons are large, nonetheless, the power of the pilpul, its sharpness, is that it's superior to it. It has its impact. So therefore, Shmuel, even though he's an Amoira, it's like one pepper versus a basket filled with the greatest of the great, the Tanoim. Nonetheless, it's superior. Why does he have to say this? Every time there's an argument and one gets refuted, why don't you say this? Because obviously the contrast is very dramatic here. You have Rabbi Akiva, you have Rabbi Lezer, you have Rabbi Meir. You have to understand who these people are. These are the author, the greatest authors of Torah Shabbal Peh. You have Rabbi Yossi, and then Shmuel, who lives centuries later, argues, and Rava says he's the only one who you can't refute.
According to this, every time Shmuel will show up and say, okay, because I'm like according to the...
Here's a scammer?
No, it's kind of like
You're putting, isn't it like often in the Talmud we see the word charik there?
Sharp, very chanaf. Yeah. The truth is, I saw one of the Mefarshim says a beautiful word on this. That he's actually saying, Ravina is saying something much deeper. A pilpil on its own is not edible. You don't say, what do you have for supper? I ate a pepper, a sharp pepper. I mean, maybe there's some people who take schug and just eat it for dinner. You don't do that. Huh? Oh. But you put in a little pilpul in the salad, in the soup, in the cholent, and the whole dish gets transformed. That's the power. That's what he's saying about Shmuel. That's his oimek. He says Shmuel is not arguing with the Tanoim. Shmuel is saying, the Tanoim are saying what they're saying. But the Tanoim on their own, you could refute them. Shmuel comes and he puts in a piece of pepper. What does the pepper do? It gives a flavor on the whole dish, even that which is not pepper. Shmuel explains kimu v'kiblu. So what happens? Now you go back and you say all these other psukim were beruach hakodesh, and even the other psukim that you don't have to say beruach hakodesh were also beruach hakodesh. That's the word. You understand? Shmuel was not arguing. Shmuel was using a pasuk as a little pepper that you throw it in. Now everything is affected by the pepper. So of course, Vati Esther noises chen is ruach hakodesh and belibo is ruach hakodesh and babiza l'shal cheshadam is ruach hakodesh. And Vayomer Haman Beliba is Ruach HaKodesh. That's the word.
Also, Shmuel is much better than them because the other one said, okay, there was Ruach HaKodesh, but who said Hashemayim? It was, they agreed. He's saying extra. He's saying, this is food for me that's kiss.
Kimu Masha Kiblu Lamata. So Megilah, all the psuk, including they. Yeah, in other words, let's put it this way. It really shows. The Tanoim saw that these psukim were beruach hakodesh. They were right. When we say we refute them, it's because we don't know. They knew. Or to put it different, the Tanaim themselves had divine inspiration. So they knew it was Baruch HaKodesh. They didn't have a problem. Rav is saying, we don't know. We have a problem. Because we don't know what's Ruach HaKodesh, so we're refuting it. So Shmuel is the one who saves the day. He throws in the peppers that we can go back and show on everything that's Baruch HaKodesh. But from their perspective, it's not a shaila because it was Taka Baruch HaKodesh. They knew the emes. You understand? Huh? Yeah. And the Gemarah finishes and says, Rabbi Yosef Amar Mehacha. Rabbi Yosef has a new proof. It says in Esther, the end, V'yimei Purim Megilah lo yavru mitocha Yehudim. The days of Purim will not pass from the Jewish people. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know it won't pass from the Jewish people? Maybe it will. Ruach HaKodesh, they knew that the Jews will never give up on Purim. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak Omer, the next part of the pasuk is Mehacha, from here. V'zichram lo yasuf mizaram. The memory will never dissipate from their children. How do you know? Maybe it will. The answer, of course, is Baruch HaKodesh. Tosfos explains the Hisafa of Reb Nachman on Reb Yosef. So the last Tosfos says, the Bereisha dekra lo chazirin ela Yehudim sheba'isi hador. The first part of the pasuk is La Yavru Metoicha Yehudim. Maybe it means that generation. So you don't need Ruach HaKodesh. You know that this generation, the Jews are excited about Purim. The second half is Zichram LeYosef Mizarm. How do you know what's going to happen in 2,500 years? That you don't know. Come on. How do you predict 2,500 years from now? You can't. Unless you're making up a story. We're not suspecting that. Unless it's Baruch HaKodesh. God says, through you, I promise you, their children will not give up on Purim. I just want to say one ha'ara, and it's really a very fascinating thing. Take a look in Tosfos L'kula Ikke Pircha Bar Mida Shmuel. Okay, everything has a pircha besides Shmuel. Yeah, Frek Tosfos V'Kasha L'Shmuel Mileka Pircha. I have a refutation for Shmuel too. The Harave Gufe. Rav is the one who says that Shmuel can't be refuted. Rav Gufi Odama Pedek Rebbe Akiva Shabbos Peches Mikan Moidor Rabbi Loi Raisa Shekiblu Shenis and Me'achar Shvedish Alma de Itztuch Krol Drash Achrin. There's a Gemarah in Shabbos Daf Peches that Jews were forced into Matan Torah. Hashem put the mountain over their head. If you take Torah, good. If not, you die. Omar Rava Mikan Meidar Rabbi Loi Raisa. Jews have an excuse that they didn't keep Torah because they were forced, like you're forced into a marriage. Then Rava says, Hadar Kiblu B'mei Achashverish. When Achashverish happened, the story put him, they re-accepted Matan Torah willingly. What's his proof? Kimu v'kiblu haYehudim. Yeah, so he says, Kimu masha kiblu kvar. They were Mekayim what they once accepted by force. They went out. This is Rava. Rabbi here says Shmuel doesn't have a refutation because Kimu l'mayla masha kiblu l'mata. You yourself teach the pasuk differently. You yourself teach Kimu masha kiblu kvar. They confirmed, they affirmed what they once accepted. That's what you say in Masechta Shabbos. Rav himself, Rav Gufe. Which means it's not Ruach HaKodesh. That's not Ruach HaKodesh. If you lived in that generation, you know that the Jews accepted upon themselves Torah. It was like a second Matan Torah willingly. Gewaltige Kash.
Well, you can say the same thing because how do you know that all the Jews from
It doesn't say all. It says Kimu. They. Okay, how do you know Jews accepted Purim? I mean, that was the atmosphere. It's not a refutation. The hashaper shaminim in etarti. It's not that they contradict each other. From the words, you could learn both. The other refutations, he destroys the logic completely. They have to say Ruach HaKodesh. Here, he's teaching. Kimu v'kibla Yehudim is a strange expression. So Rava says they affirmed what they once accepted. Shmuel says, not Kimu, they affirmed what they accepted, but Kimu l'mayla masha kiblu l'mat. It's not a stira. It's two taichin in the vertes of Megilah. It's not a pircha. It's not a pircha. So you could say, what I thought you could say, the Pshat and Tosfos is that it's Haba Hatalia. Because Lamata, it was a second Matan Torah, so therefore Kimu L'mayla. In other words, because the Jews, people really accepted it with their own passion, so therefore they affirmed it in heaven. Rava's interpretation is just a prerequisite to Shmuel. Since there was Makabel Matan Torah, so it was the same effect of Matan Torah and even deeper than Matan Torah. But here I want to tell you a word from the Vilna Gaon, and you see here layers that you don't easily realize. And that is, if you take a look at the Megillah, Kimu v'Kiblu is Esther, Perek Tes Pasuk Chav Zayin. I want you to look at this because it's something special. Take a look at page 660. 660. Esther Perek Tes Pasuk Chav Zayin. This is a. It shows you the diuk here. This is the Vilna Gaon says this. Pasuk Chav Zayin. You see Kimu v'Kiblu. What does it say after the word v'Kiblu? V'Kibel Ksiv. There's a difference between the Kri and the Ksiv. The pronunciation when you read the Megillah is Kimu v'Kiblu. The way it's written is v'Kibel. We don't usually, most people don't pay attention to this because it's like, okay, so you wrote it in the wrong way. You wrote it wrong way, you want me to pronounce it another way. But the truth is, in the Tanakh, this is one of the most important distinctions. Kri and Ksiv is critical. It's written one way and it's pronounced a different way. And in Halacha, it's a big question. Yesh aim le'Mesiris, yesh aim le'Mikra, you follow pronunciation. So the Vilna Gaon says, look at the difference. Kiblu and Kibel is two separate things. Kiblu is plural. Kibel is one. He says that's the difference. Shmuel focused on what? On the Kiblu. Kimu v'Kiblu, Kimu l'mayla, masher Kiblu l'mata, what the Jewish people were makabel. Yeah. Kibel is Moshe Rabbeinu was makabel the Torah. Kimu masher Kibel. They did it ba'oinus, but Moshe didn't do it ba'oinus. So what Moshe was makabel by Har Sinai, they were makayim. That's the vart. Kimu, finally they accepted what Moshe was makabel. And if you see a fascinating thing, yeah, how do you know he's right? The Gemarah says, Shmuel says, Shenemar kimu v'kiblu. Kimu l'mayla masher kiblu l'mata. The word he uses is shenemar. If you look in Gemarah Shabbos, he says, yeah, that Hadar kiblu b'meach hashvedish, the ksiv, kimu v'kibel. Why here Shenema, there the Ksiv? It's both the same. Because here's the Kri and there's the Ksiv. Okay. I'm away for 2 days in Mexico, so we'll resume on Friday morning. Very good. Rav is saying, don't buy into Ruach HaKodesh so easily. It got to be real. It got to be real. Very good. Yeah, I'm right. Here it's Kiblu. Kimu Yehudim Atam Masha Kibel Moshe Rabbeinu b'Kabbalas HaTorah. Because my Moshe, he was Makabel Torah. He wasn't forced with a mountain over his head, right?
In fact, he was on top of the mountain.
He was on top of the mountain.
Everybody else was below. He was on top.
Vayisyatzvu b'tachta sahar. So Kimu Masha Kibel. That's the Kibel Lashon Yochid. Kiblu Lashon Rabbim is Kimu L'mayla Masha Kiblu L'mata. Yeah. So here it's Shenema and there it's the Ksiv, because the Kri and the Ksiv. What's Ruach HaKodesh? Ruach HaKodesh means that you don't have static in your life. You're clay kibble. You don't have static.
Yeah, after the Haducha. So when we don't have static then?
There's divine energy everywhere. Hashem speaks. The world is God speaking.
Messages.
But the static, you ever saw the dial? The static. Ruach HaKodesh means there's no static. Ruach HaKodesh is the natural state of the world. Ruach HaKodesh means you're a conduit for God's energy. That's what it is. You're not obscured. You're plugged in. What happens when you plug in? The electricity flows through you. When you plug out, the electricity's there. The electricity doesn't disappear. You're not plugged in. Of course. You're plugged in. Or what happens if your wires are torn in the middle, right? Or there's a different voltage. It needs hadacha, right? But if you have good wires, clear wires, connected, and you put it in, the electricity just flows. You don't have to do anything to the electricity. You don't have to force it to come. You just open yourself up. It flows. If you cut the wire, there's still electricity. It just doesn't disappear from the world. Electricity doesn't die. Ein Sof is Ein Sof. And that's even electricity. Electricity is nicht Ein Sof. Just is a koyach in the bria, but it's a powerful mashal. Yeah. Well, that's what this man said. That you.
Yeah, you have stories about Shem also.
Of course. Yeah.
This is what we teach the children.
Huh?
The Rebbe knows that.
Huh?
This is what we teach the children.
No, there's a difference between wisdom and Ruach HaKodesh.
No.
There's a difference between halacha and Ruach HaKodesh. There's a very big difference. You have a person who's a chacham, he's a wise man, he's a sage, he's an honest person, he experience. That's very special. Shua b'roiv yoyetz, yeah, somebody who has das.
Doesn't mean that you know what I do and what.
That's not Ruach HaKodesh, you're right. It's not Ruach HaKodesh. The Baal Shem Tov said, Anoichi oimed bein Hashem ubeinechem v'hagid lechem. The Anoichi stands in between. Yeah, the Texas. So the question is, Megillah, when you say Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra, it means when it was written with that level of Ruach HaKodesh. Koheles, Shashir, and Mishlei, all these things, or it was not. Right? Reb Shimon ben Manasseh says Koheles was brilliant, but it's not Ruach HaKodesh. There's a difference between the two.
Esther hat nicht gefühlt als sie das. Esther hat nicht alles bereit.
No. Rashi says a Lashon Lias Li L'Shem. I want to have a name. So people ask, Esther wanted a name. She didn't want a name. She wanted the story of Esther, the name, what Esther accomplished, what a woman accomplishes, one Jewish woman accomplishes, should be remembered forever. Lias Li L'Shem. Somebody says that it's hard. So one of the versions says it's hard for him to understand why Rashi would say that Esther says Lios Li L'Shem. I want a reputation. He wanted to say that Rashi was Lios Lei. It'd be Lei with Yud with a Lios Lei for Hashem. That's not the Vart. You don't have to change Rashi. Lios Li L'Shem. Here is a woman, a Jewish woman, was taken by force into a palace. Yeah, but with her courage and her Mesiras Nefesh and her wisdom and her determination, she saved the whole world, the whole Jewish world forever. But Esther wants to set an example. Kavuni l'daitis. Every Jewish woman, every Jewish girl, every Jew should understand the koyach von Yiddish Frei. That's why it's called Megillah Esther. Why is it not called Megillah Esther Mordechai? Megillah Mordechai Esther. She followed his orders. She wasn't doing things on her own. He told her to go to Achashverosh. But the vart is, he planned, he conceived, but the one who had the Mesiras Nefesh, the one who got it done, right? And the one who made it a Yom Tov was all Esther, Megillah Esther, Kasvuni L'Daitis. So she wanted that should go out forever, L'Daitis. And remember something else also. It's an important message, we celebrate Purim. The Jews were very fascinated. Everybody, Ha'ir Shushan Salavas Amecha, they drank and they danced and etc. But Esther remained in the palace. Everybody was fabrenging a whole year or 10 years. But she was with Achashverosh at Tzedreite Meshugan and Melech Tippish. You understand?
How long was she with Achashverosh?
Huh? She was there. She was married to him.
She never went out.
I'm saying she didn't leave. It's not like she went to celebrate. She remained. Yeah, she remained. So this was her Mesiras Nefesh. There was a woman who once told me before Purim, she said she doesn't celebrate Purim. I said, why? She says, because it's a horrible story. I says, what's so horrible? She says, look what happened to Esther. She stays there and her children are not even considered Jewish, Daryavesh and this. So I asked her, I said, I understand, but I want you to be honest with me. If you knew in 1938 you could marry somebody in Germany, and as a result of that, not one of the 6 million Jews are killed, and you wouldn't be part of the Jewish people, would you look at your life as a tragedy? Or would you look at your life as the greatest triumph in the world? Yeah, you would not fit into the regular Beis Yaakov, Beis Ruchel, Beis Sada. That's true. You're not walking around with carriages, 14 carriages on 13th Avenue. MS. You're not going to be marrying off 100 grandchildren and sit by a mitzvah tans and cry till 5 a.m. MS. You're going to be stuck with some anti-Semite. But because of you, not one of the 6 million were killed. So Esther looked in the mirror. That's what happened. That's what happened. So I said it's a painful story, but Esther's not a tragedy. Esther's not a tragedy. Kasher avadati avadati. Yeah, that was her mistake. That's the word kasher avad. Like it actually says beratzon. The Gemarah is going to say later. This is what Esther wanted to be written down. Kavuni l'dairis, kasvuni l'dairis, the koyach of a Jewish woman, of a single Jewish woman who was put not in circumstances that she wanted. It's not like she went, she chose, she wanted to intermarry. This was not her thing. It wasn't her choice. A fine Yiddish maidel, beautiful Yiddish girl. But she was put there and she seized the moment and she saved the Jewish people for eternally because Haman was a Hitler. He wanted every Jew dead. This she wanted forever to be written down. To understand what one person can accomplish and what one woman can accomplish. Yeah. Minashim ba'ayol tevarach. It's very moving Gemarah. The Gemarah is very moving. How Esther really, she took on the whole Sanhedrin. I mean, you see this. People talk about women's rights in Judaism, even today. Okay, and today we know it's a different world. 2,600 years ago, what were women? Look at Achashverosh. His wife didn't show up without clothes. What does he do? Her head is chopped off. I mean, that's what women's rights 2,600 years ago, right? In the world. Now comes Esther, 71 Chavrei Sanhedrin, the spiritual leaders of the Jewish people, She takes them on. She tells them, Kavuni l'dai, they say, you're making anti-Semitism. Don't teach me about anti-Semitism. Don't teach me about what makes anti-Semitism. I know what makes anti-Semitism. It makes anti-Semitism that Jews are scared to be Jews. That's what makes anti-Semitism. Don't tell Esther about anti-Semitism. But who does she take on? She doesn't take on small people. She takes on the Sanhedrin. And then Kasvuni l'daitis, they again argue. No, you can't. I'm saying a woman who's not among the Jewish people. She was hanging out with a non-Jew for years, not for 6 months. She took on the whole Sanhedrin and she was successful. Of course it's called Megillah Esther. It's a very inspiring story. The whole Sanhedrin she took on. It was one person and a woman. It's very, very telling. They realized she's right, and that was it. They found that the Chumash supports her. She said it needs to be Kasvuni l'daitis, and they found the Nichtav b'Sefer. Ziksev zeh zikara b'Sefer. Kasvuni l'daitis. Kasvuni. Kasvuni, and I think also the Kasvuni is important. It doesn't say to write the miracle, write the story. Kasvuni, that's what actually says Lias Lila Shem. In many ways, this is the only name that's left. Because Esther does not become part of the Jewish community. What remains of Esther? Lias Lila Shem. This is my legacy. This is my legacy. I didn't have the privilege to be like another Jewish woman and build my family and live with Jews and raise children with Judaism. The child that she had with Achashverosh obviously had to be a Persian king, even though his mommy was Jewish. Daryavish, Al Pi Halacha he was Jewish, but in the world he was a Persian king. He was Achashverosh's heir, right? So Esther knew she was Jewish. Maybe he knew also. He gave permission. Perhaps he gave permission to rebuild the second base. It depends. There's different discussions about who her son was.
She didn't have dairis.
Certainly, because he married out. So many ways, Esther is saying, "This is my thing. This is what I did. Leah is Lila Shem. This is my name. Like Yibum. It's like Yibum. She has dairis. Yeah. It's her. Yeah. The Megillah is her child. Yeah, it's her child. The Megillah is her child, and it's called Megillah Esther. Right. Nothing is, not one sefer. It says by Chumash, the Medrash says, why is it called Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi? So the Medrash says, why is it called Torahs Moshe? It's Hashem's Torah. Moshe wrote it, but so he says, Shemasar Nafshe Allah. He sacrificed his life for it. It's called Torahs Moshe. Megillah Esther, you could say, she sacrificed her life for the original story and for writing it. So it's Megilah, it's Esther. And like you said, this is her daughter, this is her child. Stam, there's an interesting thing I just want to mention. The end of the whole Megillah before chapter Yud. Chapter Yud is already about Achashverosh, but the end of the chapter Tesses, they sent letters for everybody to be Mekayim Purim, and it says Pasuk Lamed Beis, Umaymar Esther Kiyam Divrei Purim Ha'elu V'Nichtav B'Sefer. It's a very strange pasuk. Umaymar Esther, the words of Esther, Kiyam, affirmed, the words of Purim, and it was written by Sefer. So Rashi says, Maimar Esther, it was Esther who asked from the Chachmei Adar to make it a Yom Tif and to write this Sefer with the other Ksuvim. V'zel v'nichtav b'Sefer. Maimar Esther, it was the words of Esther, the request of Esther, that Kiyam Divrei HaPurim Ha'ela, that established the words of Purim. Words here means the story, but also the words meaning the whole theme, the theme of Purim. V'nichtav b'Sefer, and it made it written as one of the Svarim of Ksuvim. So this whole Gemarah is in one pasuk in the Megillah. Rashi clearly teaches the pasuk. O Maimar Esther Kiyam Divrei HaPurim Ha'ela. It was the Maimar of Esther. It was the saying, the request that Esther sent to the Chachamim that affirmed Divrei, the words of Purim, v'nichtav b'Sefer, and it made it written in a sefer. It could have just been a Yom Tif without a sefer, right? Even if you're reading it from a book, but to have the kedusha of the Megillah, like we explained before, that was a chiddush of Esther. But I'm saying Rashi teaches it in the Megillah in one pasuk. That was just very interesting Rashi. Right, the Gemarah doesn't bring this pasuk. The Gemarah doesn't bring it. The Gemarah just has a tradition. But you say, where did the Gemarah get it from? Right? So it was just a tradition. So Rashi shows that it's actually, they wrote it in the Megillah. It was written in the Megillah. Maimar Esther, Kiyam Divrei HaPurim Ha'ela v'nichtav b'Sefer. Two things. First of all, her Maimar made Purim a Kiyum. It made it a Yom Tif. Right? Rashi says, L'kava. And number two, it made it a Sefer. V'nichtav b'Sefer. Two separate things. Could have been a Yom Tif. You could have even read the story, but it doesn't have Kedushas HaSefer. It's not one of the Kisvei HaKodesh. It's a book. You could read it Baal Peh. You could read it inside. Even if it's a holy book, it's a good book, but it's not Kisvei HaKodesh. Right? It's just there to read. Even if it was written by Ruach HaKodesh, but it's not Kisvei HaKodesh in the sense that the Ksav itself becomes significant. Therefore, Metamei Hayadayim. If it's Kodesh, it's Metamei Hayadayim. I saw a Chassidish Avart from one of the Moshe Bayan from Krakow. He was killed in the Holocaust. Rabbi Moshe from Bayan, from the Yurzhin dynasty. He says, what's Pshat Esther Metamas Hayadayim? Yeah, Esther Metamas Hayadayim. So he says, Megillah's Esther means to reveal the concealment. Esther is concealment, Hester. Megillah's Esther is to reveal the divine presence, B'toich Esther, in the B'toich Hastara, right? V'noichi Hasta Esther. To Megillah, to reveal Elokus, the godliness in the Hester. He says, and whenever you do that, there's no room for Tumah anymore. The whole Tumah can only come from the concealment of Elokus. Says the moment you're Megillah's Esther, so there's no room for Tumah anymore. Huh? Yeah, beautiful touch. When you Megilah the Elokus in the Hester, so then the tumah, there's no tumah anymore.
Is the reason why we don't touch the parliament of the Torah?
What?
Is the reason why we don't touch the parliament of the Torah?
Yeah.
It's also interesting.
Yeah.
The name of Hashem is not mentioned.
Name of Hashem is not mentioned.
No, right. She's Mamish Megilah Ein Sof, not even Divine.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah. Esther reveals that which is deeper than names. It says beyond names. Yeah, it's beyond names. The Atzmos, Anoichi. Lo Yisram is Lo B'Shem Ois, V'Lo B'Shem Koitz. So that's what he types. Metames Hayad, Eina Metames Hayadayim. Not because it's not Baruch HaKodesh. Shmuel holds it is Baruch HaKodesh. But he says when you Megilah, the Etzem and the Hester, so then there's no room for Tumah. Eina Metames Hayadayim, there's no room for Tumah. It's similar to a vart. It says that we say Moida Ani when we wake up, right? In the time of the Gemarah, they didn't say Moida Ani. They said right away L'kaina Shama, because they were in control of their hands. So in the morning, they could say Hashem's name. I'm saying we say Moida Ani right when we wake up. Because we don't want to mention Hashem's name before Negel Vasa. Why do you want to mention Hashem's name? Because the hands throughout the night, touches different places, it becomes tameh. So mainly you're not supposed to say Hashem's name before Netilas Yadayim. So therefore we say Moidani, because Moidani doesn't have Hashem's name. No, there's a reason why the Gemarah doesn't mention Moidani. So some Rishonim say because when somebody's in control of their hands, so therefore they weren't worried about it. They could just start with Elokai Neshama. Yeah. But later they put in Moidani. That's what it says in some places. So Al Pi Pshat, it's like Moida Ani is less, doesn't have Hashem's name, right? So you could say it with Yadayim Tmeis. But there's a vart, it says also in Chassidus, it says that all the tumas of the world can't be metame the Moida Ani of a Jew. The moida'ani of a Jew can't get tamei. Yeah, and it's beyond names. Names of Hashem could get, so to speak, could be affected by tumah. I can't say it, but that which is beyond the name can't be affected by tumah because it doesn't live in that realm. It's the essence, so it's indestructible. So it's even in tumah, it doesn't get tamei. So mainly, even when you're tamei, doesn't touch, it doesn't affect that relationship. Oh, it's 9:30 already. Oh wow. Okay, I have to go teach the women. Didn't realize the time.
We didn't realize it.
Baruch Hashem. We'll see on Friday. Next 2 days, no shir.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.